All right. So what is the most important subject for a witch to study in high school?
I don't know.
Spelling.
I should have had that one.
You should have. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm good. I'm excited for tonight's show.
Oh, I know. It's going to be a good one. Let's knock this housekeeping out real quick, and then we can talk about it. I want to thank Podbelly. Go to podbelly.com. We're proud to be members of the Podbelly Network. You can go on there and find some other shows that you might not run across, and they're all good shows, so go check them out, podbelly.com. We are sponsorless this week because this is supposed to be a dark week, but we don't do 2 dark weeks in a row. Matt and I are too obsessive, I guess, about the show coming out that we don't want you to miss us too much with double dark weeks. So,
yeah, I mean, when we set our schedule originally years ago, we weren't necessarily considering the months that have 5 weeks.
Right.
But we take care of that.
Yeah. At a point, though, you just have to kind of go, well, I'm too dumb to change our schedule, so it's just staying where it's at, and we'll deal with it another way. We'll call an audible. But also, this is Halloween. So in a couple days, if you're listening to this, when it drops, Halloween will be in a couple days. So obviously, we had to put out a show for Halloween.
Yep.
So that's why this show will be sponsorless. However, go back and support our sponsors, because if you support our sponsors with our codes and our links, that really helps support us in the long run, because they come back, and that's how we keep this show free. So if you can, order something from one of our sponsors or try them out or something, that's a big help. And all the links and codes are in the show notes of that episode. So if you need a code, you don't catch it on the ad, go into the show notes and you can find the links and the codes there. While you're on the internet, go to patreon.com/graveyard tales and you can become a patron of the show, help support the show, and you get little bonus items for depending on the tier that you choose, $1, $5, or $10. And $10 patrons get a weekly video version, ad-free, of every show that we record. So they're watching us do this right now, and this is a good one that you'll want the video of as well, because I think this was a cool episode to see the video of. But go over there. You can sign up for $1, $5, or $10 and get different bonus items depending on which tier. We're getting a lot of good responses for our Christmas episode, our holiday episode. We've already got a bunch of emails. So if you have a story, an encounter, anything like that that's spooky or paranormal or weird, don't think, well, I haven't had I haven't teleported at all, so I don't have a valid story to send in. If you have anything weirdness, if you've been out hunting and heard some weird things, Matt and I are very into the weird military stories. So if you have been deployed or you're at a base that supposedly has some hauntings or some weirdness, let us know. We get quite a few interesting battlefield mysteries. And those things are always amazing to us. So if you have any of those, send those in. But we do this every year. It's become a tradition. So let's keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. And Adam and I really enjoy hearing some of these experiences, these stories. because not only are they all unique and interesting, they're from our listeners, and it makes it even better.
Absolutely. So go over there. Our email address is in the show notes. You can find that, or it's graveyardtalespodcast@gmail.com. Put Christmas 2021, holiday episode 2021, something along those lines in the subject line, so we can find it easier when we're scrolling through the emails, and we can segment it properly so we can go back and get your story. But Matt, that's all the housekeeping. That's enough housekeeping for this episode. Yeah. So tell us, Matt, I'm excited. This is an interesting show, something we kind of haven't done before. So what did we do, Matt?
So tonight, and we've always liked to do something a little out of the ordinary for the Halloween show. We've done an interview with my parents at my house, at my childhood house.
Yep.
We've done interesting places and things like that we're fairly famous.
We did the Chindi.
Yeah. But we haven't done anything like this. And so tonight is not so much an interview as it is kind of just a hangout, just to kind of chit chat about some things, namely horror movies, good ones, bad ones, all that kind of stuff. We get into some oddball things when we talk about UFOs and whatnot. But our guest is really what makes this show interesting and exciting. Filmmaker Dennis Cahlo is joining us tonight on this show. He is a filmmaker from Brooklyn, New York. He's been making films since he's been making films since 2015, and his first short film, The Weekend, won 30 festival awards and 40 official selections. So
he's got some awards, man.
He's got some chops, to put his first short film out there and for it to be recognized so heavily. It's just fantastic. He's also got a short film that he's made since then, Death and Disco Fries, which I really enjoyed. And then Lonely Hearts, which is fantastic.
Lonely Hearts was great. I like that one.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. And all of these are available. We'll be providing links so that you can go and check out Dennis's film. But he's going to join us tonight. We had a fantastic time talking with Dennis and just kind of shooting the bull. And like I said, we talk about everything from horror movies that inspired him to, all of our favorites and different genres and different actors. And then we kind of go off the rails for a little bit and talk about all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. And this was perfect for our Halloween show.
I think so too. I think, Halloween, you think, I'm going to sit down and watch some horror movies and stuff like that, and let the kids come and trick or treat and stuff, so you could listen to this while trick or treating. Just pop on the show and listen to it either while kids are coming and picking up candy from your house or while you're taking your kid around. But like Matt said, horror movies, can't beat it for Halloween. So we've talked long enough, Matt. Let's get straight into that interview. All right, everybody, here we are, and this is the interview that we were teasing to in the intro of this episode, and we're super excited to have Dennis with us. So, Dennis, why don't you give your bona fides, or as the cultured people say, your bona fides, to everybody, and let them know what you do and what you've been doing.
Sure. Well, first, I just want to thank you guys, Adam and Matt. This is an honor. I mean, to be the Halloween guest is pretty huge, and I'm a huge fan of the show. So I'm just grateful to you guys for inviting me on.
We're glad you're here, man.
Callow. I'm it's very exciting. Really, really exciting. My name's Dennis Cahlo. I'm a director, movie director, and photographer from New York City. And I've made 5 short films now and a feature-length documentary, and now I'm, working on more things. So that's what I do. And I'm a huge, Graveyard Tales listener fan.
Well, we noticed you've won quite a few awards for your work, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was really funny because I started pretty late in life, a late bloomer, and so around 35 when I started making films. So I was doing photography for a while, and I made this short called The Weekend, which was not horror, it was a drama.
Mm-hmm.
And it was based on something that happened to me, and I was like, really going for that kind of like prestige drama kind of thing. But really it was just an honest story, So I did it, and I was like, let's just release it. Let's not worry about festivals or anything. And my girlfriend at the time, who was the lead in the film, she was like, no, we got to enter this into some festivals. So then it goes on this like 2-year, 3-year run of festivals. Man. And I won all these awards. And then my friends were like, you should probably continue doing that.
Yeah. That's confirmation that you should, I think, at that point.
Yeah. I'm not really one to say that like awards are nice, but it's the work that you put out and consistently put out that is really that's the reward in the end. But it just sort of justifies when someone hands you a piece of metal that they're like 4 people in a room said you're good, and this is the representation of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it does validate you in some way to keep doing it.
Sure.
So I got all these things that made all these awards, and then I did like a total 180 and made a romantic comedy after that. And then the third one was Lonely Hearts, which just blew the floodgates open for me in terms of horror. And that just started me on this path that I'm on now. And it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey to get to this point, but I found my voice in horror, and I just love the horror community so much. They're such a wonderful group of people, really like very different than what I think people sort of maybe have portrayed in their mind. Like they might think that they're these dark, brooding people with long, straggly hair who sit in the dark and with candles. And we do that, but there are all these, that happens. But they're very wonderfully sympathetic people who have dealt with traumas, and the audiences are so wonderful that I was like, this is the audience that I want to be giving my movies to. They're just a wonderful crowd of people. And after we did Lonely Hearts, and it like went to all of these horror festivals, and everyone instantly got it and got the references and got the jokes. And really, they were like, you got to keep doing this. I want to see your next film, and I want to see the film after that. And I want to see the film after that. I was like, this is my home. This is where I belong. So, just kind of said, all right, here we go. Let's do that.
So when I watched Lonely Hearts, I immediately sent it to Amanda. And I was like, you have to watch this. I was like, as soon as you get a chance, you have to watch it. And then I was so excited that when she got home, I just told her everything. I was like, you can still watch it.
Yeah, it won't ruin it, but here's what happened.
While I'm watching it, my son is in the room, and he's 12, and he's like, what are you watching? And so I'm telling him what I'm watching, and he's getting tickled. Hearing me tell about it. I was like, well, come on, let's finish it. Come on. I was like, we're still watching it. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's go. And we both loved it.
Oh, and that's great. I'm so glad.
What I was really amazed by is that your ability to create characters in a short form that the audience can relate to. I mean, because you really kind of feel what she's going through. Mm-hmm. I think everybody has been at that point in their life, and so you really start to feel it. And you're not talking about a character that it's taken 35 minutes to lay out and build this, all this framework for this character. You're talking about 3-4 minutes, and you've already kind of gotten that the audience is already beginning to relate, and you can move the story on. So
that's what amazed me about the shorts. Like you were saying, how quickly you're able to develop that character and make it relatable, because most of these movies that are coming out now, you watch them, and after an hour of watching it, you still don't know who the heck that one person is or why they're even in the story. And you made all of your shorts, you have made relatable characters come to life quickly. And that one of the things I really appreciate about your directing in your movies is exactly like Matt said. You get it. You understand the person real quick.
Oh, thank you so much. Like, that means so much to me because characters are so important to me. And a lot of that is the ability of the actor. So Bethany, who's my girlfriend who plays the lead, Celeste, in Lonely Hearts, she created that character and really understood her, to a point where she had a diary, created a whole backstory. So much of the credit goes to her, and both of us sort of understanding the story that we wanted to tell. But this is why I love short form content or movies, because you have to be really concise, and quick, and hook people in with emotion very, very quickly, which is why I really love the new Creep Show. I don't know if you guys have been watching it on Shudder. It's great, but they're all short form. They're like 15 minutes long. Each there's like 2 episodes in one or two stories in one episode.
Yeah.
So I think they're like 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes each. But they're like little short films, and you have to tell the story quickly, and I love that. And I'm so happy it came across in all of them.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. And honestly, when I watched Death and Disco Fries.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I thought, well, this is really going to be funny, and it is. I mean, it really is. And I can't remember the line. I loved the line where he's saying all the different terms for death, and you're like, I haven't heard that one. Because I thought that's what I would have said. I've never heard that one. But and by the end of that, I really felt, I was like, oh man, here I am, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden I feel myself like being emotionally, attached to what's going on with this character, and I was like, it's a 15-minute. It's, I've watched longer videos about auto maintenance, and I'm like, this is great.
And you got really attached to that muffler in that one, that one that you watched a few days ago. It's like,
went out and bought it the next day
about this spark plug.
That explains why we've got a bill on the show account for a muffler. I was wondering what that was for.
That's right. I had to put a new clutch in my truck.
Well, Death and Disco Fries was the one that that sort of made me understand that I wanted to do comedy more than anything, but comedy with some emotional weight to it, and I think that's why I gravitated to horror, because horror, you can do anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could do it sad. You could do it smart. All horror is smart. You could do it sad. You could do it prestige-y. You could do it campy. You could do it tongue-in-cheek. But where it lies for me is the comedy in horror, because you can have so much fun with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil too much about Lonely Hearts. If anyone wants to watch it, they could go to my website, DennisCallow.com. It's there. It's also on Vimeo for free. Everything's for free.
I'll put a link to it in the description of this episode. So
great. So, but with comedy and horror, you just get to do so much, because you get to take these sort of absurd things like vampires, serial killers, and find the humor in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's it's challenging, but it's also so much fun because with Lonely Hearts, like I said, I don't want to spoil too much, but with Lonely Hearts, I was like, I hope people get this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And so when we brought it to the horror crowd, the laughs that happen when they start to get into it, you know, it's awesome. But Death and Disco Fries was kind of like that. I was going into darker territory. I was like, okay, I'm going to make a comedy about death, you know?
Yep.
And then the next one was naturally horror. But yeah, that's why I love horror comedy so much, because there's just so much you can do with it.
Yeah, the humor, that's a great point, because that was one of the things that as a kid drew me into horror movies. Is I've always been kind of a smart ass, like to joke and all that. And it was a coping mechanism way back in the day. I in middle school and high school, I became the funny guy to cope, but then it's just become something now where I have to try to be serious and not make a joke at some points. Like I am always wanting to make a joke, and Matt is kind of the same way. And that's what we try to do with Graveyard Tales is we're talking about, incubus, succubus, witch trials, whatever, but
hellholes.
Yeah, hellholes.
Yeah.
But you've got to add some humor into it, because I don't know. I find it too cheesy when a movie, a podcast, or whatever is like constant serious the whole time, and they're like, and then the guy walked into the back room and sliced her head off. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but let's make the guy trip and fall on something while he's walking in there. Something more realistic, not as brooding and constantly serious, because then I just start, I think about, this is not a word, but the pomposity of the person writing it, where they took themselves that seriously. And it's got to have some humor in it. And I think that's why the natural evolution of Graveyard Tales was to, okay, Matt and I are smart Alex, so let's add that into the show.
Yeah, and I also love what I love about your show and what you guys do is that you flat out say, we don't know everything, but this is what we think.
Mm-hmm.
This is the information. This is the theory that we've come up with based on what we've researched. You know what I mean? And I love that. I love when folks take that approach to things. I don't know everything, but here's my theory.
Yeah. Nobody would believe us if we said we knew everything.
My chair is making farty noises. Because it's just like, so if you hear like
Adam's chair makes all kinds of farting noises.
Yeah. Adam's Adam makes all kinds of noises like that too.
It makes me think, when I was a kid, the original Creepshow movie?
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I loved it as a kid. Now, I say I was probably, I don't know. What did it come out, like 84, something like that? Maybe 85?
84, somewhere. 85, yeah. That golden era of horror movies in the 80s.
I'm like in 5th grade. Yeah. And I don't know how I came across this, or if it runs at the very end of the movie or something after the credits. Anyway, I had recorded off cable a series of outtakes from Creepshow. Okay. And I thought it was the funniest thing I had ever seen. These people in full makeup, filming this horrible scene. And then one of them cracks a joke or flubs a line, and everybody starts laughing. And it's so funny to me.
Yep.
There's these creatures coming up the stairs, and they're going, "You can't kill us because we're already dead." And the other one goes, "Because we're already dead." And then the other one says, "You already said that." and I just start laughing. I said that because that's how I would be.
Yep.
I can't pass it up. If there's a shot at making a really funny joke, I'm going to hit it. and I was like, okay, we can redo it, but I had to do that,
Mhm.
That's the thing. It's mixing that levity with the horror. You know what I mean? With the absolute horror that you're facing.
Mhm.
And you're like, well, what would I do in this situation? I'd probably make a joke and then run.
Yeah.
That's how I deal with every situation,
Yeah, my wife has said if I ever get kidnapped, they'll probably return me because I won't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I will be joking on them, making fun of them and everything until they get me to the spot, and then they'll turn right around and take me back because they're like, this dude's an idiot. I can't deal with him. Let's take him back.
Yeah.
I've got a gun to his face, and he's making
too dumb
jokes.
to be scared.
Yeah, exactly.
The scene that I picture is Adam is like tied up. They throw him in the trunk, and they're driving down this like dirt road, and all you hear from the trunk is, "What do you call a witch?" And they're just like, "Is this guy? Do you?" And then they're like, "Can you answer me?"
Yeah.
It's really boring back here.
Yeah, right.
Please just participate.
Laugh, something. Hey, did the joke land? Tell me if the joke landed, please.
That's actually awesome. I want to write that into a movie now. Full credit will be given to you guys. But see, this is why. That's why, like, you can go either way with it, and that's why I love it so much. And after Lonely Hearts, we ended up writing this next one called Visitations, which is a vampire horror comedy, and then we're doing one in between called Doors, which is it's straight up. There's no humor in it. It is straight up horror. I was like, let's do something let's do something to show people we could actually scare them.
I saw that teaser that you put up on Instagram for Doors, and I'm like, this is going to be a good one. I'm going to enjoy that.
So, guys, I am so excited because the end is just like, it just goes off the rails. Like, if we could pull it off, which I know that we can, I'm really excited about it. And we stripped everything down. I'm going to film it with the iPhone and this anamorphic lens that I have that attaches to the phone. So we're really excited about that one. But
that's going to be cool because I think one of the things, and maybe it's just me, I don't know, but the older movies, the 80s, early 90s, those horror movies, the B horror movies that really caught my attention, they were gritty. They weren't bad. Like, it wasn't bad cinematography. It was just gritty. And everything wasn't with a steady cam. It wasn't clean overlays and clean fades to another scene. It was gritty and dirty. And I'm like, that is more scary than if you're sitting watching a clean, steady cam shot of a serial killer running at you. If you see the bumps in the camera or what, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it makes it more intense and feel like you're there. Sometimes the clean shots in a horror movie, it makes you realize I'm not really here. This isn't really happening. But if it's a little dirty, then you're like, this could be right behind me. It really gets you. So I like your idea of doing it on a phone camera and making it a little more gritty that way.
Yeah, it was funny because I said to Bethany, I said, I was like, let's, we'll do this with this. I got some new equipment that we're going to be using for visitations. And then I said to myself, no, she has a small space. We're shooting it in her apartment. It's a small space. I was like, but we could still shoot it anamorphic. It could still look like a movie. And we want to do most of it in one take, because it has to do, it's based on the monkey's paw. That's like sort of sort of this, that knocking.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it has to do with knocking, something knocking on doors and her following these knocks around because she has all these weird doors in her apartment. Like one doesn't even lead to anywhere. It just leads to a wall. It's really strange. So she's like, I want to do something with this. So she came up with this concept. And then I was like, wait, yeah, monkey's paw, something like that, So It's loosely based on that, but it's a real scary 5-minute tale. And guys, I'm so excited. I can't wait because it just goes crazy at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, and stripping it down like that, kind of going raw. And like I said, like before we got into the chat, sort of punk rock, you know what I mean? Like, let's just shoot this, you, me, and like maybe one other person helping us. And like, let's just go like raw with it,
Yep.
Plus it's easier to operate the iPhone and it looks great. So it's like, this is perfect. We don't need a huge setup. Let's just do it this way.
Right.
And that's why what you were saying about those movies is these directors, a lot of them were limited. They had limited budgets. They had limited time. They had limited talent, limited scripts. And that's when you get the best work.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you throw money at a problem, it ends up being real bad. But sometimes when you're forced to work within your limitations, you're really forced to be creative.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I do it the way I do. And suffer with no crew.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing. And I know that when I'm about 10 years older than Adam. So the movies that were hot when I were a kid, when Friday nights would come, you're in middle school, everybody goes to the video store and you got to rent, horror movies. They were all slasher movies.
Mm-hmm.
They were all whatever the Friday the 13th was, whatever, Halloween version was out at the time, or some of those other ones, like the oddball ones, like Silent Night, Deadly Night, all those. That's what we watched.
Yeah.
That's what Friday night was. Until we got a little bit older and we started doing other crap, but that, those were the movies I remember watching, like Basket Case and those just one-off weird horror movies that, they didn't just terrify you, but they were extremely entertaining.
Yes.
And you just watched them and you didn't think, I've just watched this guy dressed as Santa kill about 3-4 women right in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really all that scared about walking upstairs in the dark.
Right.
But I tell you, I can remember as a kid seeing some that, I mean, you get done with them and you're like, oh, I don't. It's like when I watched The Ring for the first time, I you not. And Adam will have to bleep that. But
and I thought I was going to be the one that had the potty mouth.
I'm alone in my apartment. And as soon as the movie's over, my phone rings. and I thought, I thought great. I was gonna wet my pants. I mean, it was that quick, and I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
I thought one of my friends is watching me, knows I'm doing this, and they're messing with me.
Yep.
Yeah. They put a camera in the teddy bear.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They were watching you.
That's crazy.
Here's the thing that so go ahead.
No. So what I was gonna ask you, Dennis, is what were those movies for you? The ones that stick with you that you're like, yeah, I remember watching that, or I watched it so many times, and maybe you work in just like kind of a reference to it, and pay homage to one of those oddball horror movies. Do you have something like that?
Matt, you just asked the magic question because I didn't. So when I made Lonely Hearts, I was like, I'm going to do a horror comedy, right? This whole thing, like the vampire hair and the nails and like the like, I wasn't like that a year ago. A year ago, I was like a Wes Anderson hipster preppy kid. You know what I mean? Like that was where that's why I was like, that's where I'm going to go as a filmmaker. And I tend to put on, the look that I am is what I like to look is. So when you see me, you know what I do.
Right.
So you see me, you're like, that guy's a horror director. That guy's into some sort of something like that. But so after Lonely Hearts, I tapped into horror and how much of it was in my DNA and how much of it was in my DNA from when I was a kid. And if I'm going to take it back the first movie that had a true effect on me, a horror movie that I watched. Now, in New York, we had, I think, Matt, I think you and I are around the same age. Because every reference you're saying, I'm like, yeah, no, I get it.
Remember those?
I know that. Yeah, I know that. So in New York City, we had maybe like 3 channels, right? It was like Channel 11, Channel 5, and like Channel 2, 4. Yeah, it was just like 4 or 5 channels. Channel 11 always had some weirdo stuff on like a Saturday afternoon. Always. I would always put it on, and it was like some weird movie that I've never seen before in my life. And it was always some obscure like horror or drama or whatever. Just something I'm like, what is this? So I turn it on one day. It's Mia Farrow in The Haunting of Julia. It was called Full Circle in England when it came out. That movie freaked me out so bad when I was a kid. Now, I was so young. I was forming, like my brain was still forming.
Yeah.
If anyone has not seen that movie, I highly recommend it. It's on Shudder. It's one of the most creepy, eerie, atmospheric movies. The cinematography is beautiful. Mia Farrow's performance is chilling, and it is just a haunted house movie, it's like more like a ghost story. It's not even a haunted house. It's a ghost story, but it was the first thing that made me feel so many things and start to pick apart movies as I was watching them and go, why did that do that to me?
Yeah.
Why am I still thinking of this? You know?
Mm-hmm.
That was the gateway. That was the first one. And like usually for kids who were my age at the time, you know, their gateway would have been like Goosebumps or whatever. Mine was The Haunting of freaking Julia, which is like Mia Farrow gets her throat slit at the end by a kid. And this was what I saw. And it truly affected me. And so I've always sort of gone back to that in my mind as for like cinematography and stuff like that. But if we want to talk comedy, the movie that was a horror movie that made me understand how you make a movie funny and also scary at the same time and like thrilling and chilling is Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
Night of the Creeps was like hands down.
Oh,
you got
yes!
Tom Atkins in there. Tom Atkins is the Cary Grant of horror. He's in like every horror movie from the 80s. He's always like the suave older guy, you know, he's just the king. So that movie changed pretty much everything for me. I was like, wait a minute, it could be funny too? You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
God,
And this was
I had forgotten that movie.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, that is, dude, if you want to go on like a serious Halloween walk down memory lane, watch Night of the Creeps. It holds up so well. It's awesome. It's funny. It's just great. It's so great. I watched it the other day. I bought it on VHS. I have a little, I don't know if you can see it behind me, but there's a little TV behind me with a VCR built into it.
Yeah.
And Night of the Creeps I had to get. So those were the two formative ones. And now as we're going more and more into like the stuff that really started to form me, the Blob 1988. 1988 was a year that is like, I would say this stretch of 1985 to like 1988 was amazing. It was amazing.
You got a lot of movies in that time because Night of the Creeps was 86. So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you think about that run. You're right, Dennis. I mean, you're looking at things like Child's Play.
My God,
you know, which,
so good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everything from. I mean, look, I just popped it up. 1988, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, that was a good one.
That movie is fantastic. It is a masterpiece. If you go back and watch it, so the fun thing too is going back now and watching them is like night and day because I'm like, oh, I understand filmmaking now.
Mm-hmm.
I see film in a different way. So now I understand this on a completely different level.
Yep.
You know, I understand this movie on a totally different level. Yeah. So that was another one. The Blob 1988. I don't know. Let's go down some of the lists. I'm trying to think what else there was.
It's funny. And by that year, we're looking at Friday the 13th, Part 7.
I think it was it Part 5 or Part 6 that was really good. Part 5, there was one that they did that was a comedy, and it's great. It's fantastic. I think it's part 5. It's genius. It's absolute genius. It's the one where the kid grows up from I think from 4. So it's probably, I think it's 5. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 5.
I think you're right. They all kind of mix together in my head.
Yeah,
because I had a traumatic experience with Friday the 13th. I actually saw Friday the 13th, the original, at the theater. And now, if you do the math, I was 6 years old. Okay, because we had a drive-in theater down the road from my house, and of course, the whole idea was we're gonna go. Matt's gonna be in his pajamas, and he's gonna fall asleep. I mean, it's a double feature. Matt didn't fall asleep. Matt watched all these movies. I saw the original Halloween, original Friday 13th at the theater. I was like, I'm way too young to have seen these in a theater, but that's how it happened. So I always, had this little, I don't like scary movies, but I kind of like scary movies.
Yeah.
I was really too young at the time to separate what's real and what's movie. But as I got older, then I got to realize, it's pretty cool. These turned into huge franchises, and I can honestly say, I saw all these at the theater, and none of my friends ever did. They all had to rent them or watch them on cable. So it was kind of cool. It wasn't at the time, but it became cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was a kid, we always had that one friend who would you'd go down in his basement and he'd have like this. It was like this, this case. He'd take it out and it was all horror. And you're like, oh my God, my parents will let me watch it. Let's watch this one. Let's watch this one. Let's watch this one. And then I'd go home and I wouldn't be able to sleep for like days. It's like I was just scared. I remember the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh my God. The first time I saw Nightmare on Elm Street was in my friend's basement, my best friend's basement. And he was like, oh, you've never seen this before? It's great. He puts it on. I didn't sleep for days. I was like, I was a little kid insomniac because that movie, the first one is so scary. I mean, I think Dream Warriors is the masterpiece. It's like Dream Warriors is what kids should get out of Freddy. Your kids turn into superheroes. It's awesome. But that first one is so eerie.
Yeah.
And so scary. It's like awful.
But what would you say this? Because I've always kind of thought this, that Freddy Krueger was probably the first horror villain that had a personality, and there is some comedy in those movies because he's got all the quick one-liners and everything. But he was really the first one that you could almost root for in a way. I mean, and you're right. The original, they built his character to be larger and larger each movie, but that original one, I mean, it affected me. I remember going, holy cow, and my parents, and I'm a teenager by this point. My parents were like, I don't know if you should watch this or not. I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It was pretty creepy, but he had a personality. I mean,
and you're right. He developed a personality, like starting with 2 and then going into 3. 3 is where he really started to become the Freddy that we know and love. He became like the MTV Freddy. But in the first one, the pitch of his voice was lower. He was real scary. He was really scary in that first one. And by the third one, you're like, I don't know if I want to run from Freddy. I think I want to be Freddy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a beer with Freddy.
Yeah. I want to hang out with Freddy. Like I want to be in the dream and like do stuff with him.
So y'all are talking about old movies, right? All these old classic movies. And it made me think, what are some movies that are like Night of the Living Dead by Romero that when it came out, it shaped every zombie movie after that. So all of the, up until here recently, when they've kind of like with World War Z and stuff, they've kind of redone how the zombies move and act. It shaped how zombies were portrayed in movies from when it came out in, I think it was the late 60s, wasn't it? Like
It was 1968. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Night of the Living Dead was 1968, and then Dawn of the Dead, I believe, was like 1972 or 3.
Yeah.
Maybe 75 or I don't know. It was in maybe mid 70s.
So what are some other movies that you think had the biggest hand in shaping how subsequent horror movies portray the villain? And I've got another question about horror movie villains here in a second for you, but
Sure.
as Night of the Living Dead shaped the zombies, what other movies do you think, original movies out there, shaped the genre for monsters and stuff?
Oh, for monsters. I think that monsters really evolved. I feel like if you go, you have to take it all the way back to the creature feature, right? So Frankenstein, and then you've got a Creature from the Black Lagoon. You know, everything is sort of based there.
Right.
You know, where I think everything sort of took a real hard left is when the Italians got involved. When my people took it all over. When my people took the genre over, it was like, what is this? You know? So I'm trying to answer your question as eloquently as possible. What formed monster? Like what shaped monsters? I mean, there's all sorts of different monsters. There's like there's Godzilla. There's the giant kaiju monster, which formed from King Kong. If you want to take it farther back,
Yeah.
I consider King Kong a horror movie.
Yeah.
I always have. I've always considered that movie a big monster horror movie. It's scary as hell. And then you've got your smaller creatures, which is like the werewolf and Dracula, if you want to take it, you know, the vampire route. And then you've got the Blob. You know, the Blob is one of my favorite. Actually, the Blob 1988 is one of my favorite remakes. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like what. That's a tough question. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think that. What was the question again? Do monsters,
like,
how have they evolved?
What are some of the original movies that shaped a monster? Like, if you've got, and like you said, Dracula
Gotcha.
would be the first Dracula, that Nosferatu, that kind of shaped the actor portraying it in a certain way, shaped how Dracula was seen after that. Like, we had an idea from the books, but it was all over, and it wasn't until that actor got a hold of it and made it where he's doing the hand thing and the very creepy Dracula thing. And I don't know, there are a lot of movies like that, but I'm having a hard time. Like, I'm terrible with movie names, but what shaped
You're doing great. Yeah. So I think you have to take it all the way back to Universal. That's the birth, right? Like, that's, I mean, well, like you said, Nosferatu, the silent era, Dr. Caligari's, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, that can even be considered a monster movie because he's so eerie, Dr. Caligari. But I think that if you take Bela Lugosi, right, as Dracula, it shaped so much in terms of where vampires go.
Yep.
And I think you can even say that if you want to take it all the way to 1992 to Candyman, Candyman is sort of like Dracula in a way. It's really a gothic sort of, that to me is the most modern gothic horror we've had, and I feel like it stems from that Universal monster, but taken now into the world that was 1992 at the time, right? Putting it in an urban setting. So I think you could take it all the way back to that, and then even predating that, what was written down: Mary Shelley, Frankenstein's monster, really, because Frankenstein is the scientist's name.
Yeah.
I recently read the original text, the original Mary Shelley Frankenstein text, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is nothing like what Universal did with it.
Right.
But from all those creature features, I think that's where it all evolved. And then by the time you get to the Italians in the 70s doing, Lucio Fulci doing Zombie 2, which was a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, but it was like had nothing to do with it, and a zombie fights a shark, you know. And then you've got the Beyond, and you've got like the whole. You've got the Beyond. You've got House by the Cemetery, like all those great Italian sort of zombie creature movies, evolving all the way to now, where I feel like creatures now can have more of a story, you know, than they used to. And and I mean, as a matter of fact, the feature that I'm writing, which is called The Mess, is exactly that. It's a creature feature. It's not a horror. Well, it is a horror, but it's a creature feature, and it's basically like a Frankenstein's monster story. But there's so much heart in the monster, and that's what I realized when I went back and I read Mary Shelley's original text, was that you feel so much for the monster in that, which you never really get in the Universal movie.
Right.
You get it in subsequent, like, later years, you know, in later film adaptations. But man, to take a monster and show their story is like really fascinating to me. I'm sorry, I went on a real tangent there, guys.
So, Dennis, I've mentioned it before, especially when we run our Shudder ads, Shudder.com code GRAVE. If y'all want to check out any of the movies that we're talking about, shameless sponsor plug here. Use the code GRAVE on Shudder and you can get 30 days for free and then watch all of the movies that we're talking about tonight. But I always loved B horror movies. Like that was the genre that got me. And there for a while, I would go to the corner movie store every weekend and I'd rent these B horror movies. Sometimes they had them used, you could buy them. And so I'd buy them and get stuff like Eight-Legged Freaks, or I don't know if you've seen the movie Brotherhood of Blood that had Sid Haig in it.
No.
Okay.
I've never seen it.
You've got to watch it. It's great and horrible at the exact same time. It's
my two favorite things.
Yeah, it's vampires, but the prosthetic teeth they have look like you shoved grapes onto the person's teeth. So it's like these guys couldn't bite anybody. Like, I don't know. You're going to like polish their neck with these things. You're not going to bite into them. It was horrible, but it's Sid Haig, so you got to love him. And it was a great movie. And some of those, like the Eight-Legged Freaks and stuff, they had some of the better, I guess, cheesy monsters to me.
Yeah.
And even as they come up into like modern day, they're still great monsters. So you've got all the cool monsters that are on these B horror movies. But what I don't see that I would like to see is more cryptozoology based movies. Like, yeah, there's some Bigfoot movies out there. There's like in the 70s, there was some Bigfoot and Wild Boy TV show. There's some.
Have you seen, and I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I have to, with Bigfoot, have you seen the Bobcat Goldthwait?
No, I want to.
Guys, it's so good. Bethany and I loved it. If you want a good crypto movie, start with that one. It's real good. It's a found footage one that's like, it's just it's very good. I was shocked at how good it was.
I heard about it, but I hadn't pulled the trigger on watching it yet, but I need to. But I was going to say,
I guess I'm unfamiliar with it.
I forget the name of it. I don't know why it's I for some reason I can't remember the name of it right now, but it is such a good movie. It is absolutely fantastic. I loved it. I think you guys would love it too. It's really, really good. Yeah, so I know exactly what you mean. I think that we do need more crypto movies. We absolutely need more crypto, not cryptocurrency, but cryptozoology movies.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you were
Willow
to
Creek is the name of
Willow
this
Creek,
movie.
that's
Yeah.
it. It's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. Yeah, you guys should definitely check it out. I was kind of shocked at how good it was.
right.
The lead guy could get a little grating, but it's good. It's really, really good. It's worth it.
If you were going to do a movie with a cryptid, what would the cryptid be? Like, what would you think had the most meat on the bone for a cryptid? Because we've got the Mothman prophecies, and that was good, but like, I don't know if I would consider that a cryptid or an alien thing or whatever. But if you were to pick one, and you said, all right, the next Dennis movie is going to be cryptozoology, what do you think the monster would be?
Man, that's a great question. I've been really fascinated with the Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
And the Pine Barrens, just because I think the Pine Barrens itself is so eerie and so large, and I'm kind of like, what's going on in there? What's happening?
Yep.
You know? And I feel like the Jersey Devil doesn't really get its due most of the time. So I would love to do that. I'm trying to think what else. I'm sure there's another. What other cryptos are there besides like besides the top ones? I'd like to tackle something that was a little less known. But the Jersey Devil and the Pine Barrens themselves, like just that surrounding area, is so eerie. That's where I would love to take it there. And it's a woods movie, you know?
And I think there's actually something going on with the Jersey Devil, because I worked with a guy who grew up near the Pine Barrens, and he told me that he had an experience with the Jersey Devil. And it's this older guy that I don't think would lie to me about it. But like, he said one night he was going to sleep and he heard something in his window, and he looks over there. He's maybe 10 years old. And he said there's a Jersey Devil right at the window looking in at him. And he flipped out and started screaming. And apparently his mom came in, like she busted in the door to see what was wrong. And the devil had moved, like it wasn't in front of the window. And he told his mom what happened. And he said, my mom, tough old lady, threw that window open and started cussing at the Jersey Devil to leave her boy alone. And he said it never came back. But I mean, I told you the other day, Dennis, when you talk to people, I have this thing where I can tell if they're serious, like if they actually believe what they saw or heard or whatever. I can kind of tell. And I think a lot of people can if they actually pay attention. You can tell when somebody's blowing smoke up your butt or legitimately believes what they saw. And he legitimately believed that was the Jersey Devil at his window at 10 years old. So I think there legitimately is something going on with the Jersey Devil and that Pine Barrens area. And like you said, that whole Pine Barrens is creepy. It's so creepy. And what I love about it is it's so close to me. So I grew up on Staten Island, which is kind of like, it's kind of like the precursor to New Jersey if you're if you're like leaving New York, you know. So some people are like, you're not even from New York, you're from Staten Island. I'm like, that's more New York than you are. So I think it's a place that's always fascinated me, and it's a place that's always sort of scared me. And woods. So I grew up across the street from a woods, and Staten Island was a bit rural when I was growing up. I grew up there in the 70s and early 80s, so there was less development and a lot more land around. Yeah. So I grew up loving the woods, and then as I got older, it started to scare me. You know, the stories that I would hear about people going missing and things like that, and these sort of portals to other dimensions that they lie in there, you know, and that's and so it being that close to me, within driving distance, I think it's something like where it's that speaks to me, because it freaks me out. You know what I mean? Like it really, that story and the Pine Barrens themselves just totally freak me out. So yeah, that's something I would love to tackle.
but more so not about the Jersey Devil. So the Jersey Devil is a part of it, but what's going on in the Pine Barrens?
Yep.
Like there's some freaky stuff going on.
I think that'd be good. And if you need 2 extras, Matt and I are available.
Oh my God, I would love to put you guys in something. You guys are definitely characters.
Yeah.
You guys are 100% characters.
Right.
Yeah, you just be yourselves. Just put the camera on and be like, just say this like you would say, that line. Just say it how you would say it.
That would be fun.
That's my direction to you guys.
Maybe we can work on that.
We should, yeah.
Graveyard Tales
a
and
crypto adventure. You know what I mean? Yeah. We'll get you guys and the Astonishing Legends guys together, right? Because they have some production, they have some production background.
Right.
We get you guys together and we put you in sort of like a modern day, let's say like a Ghostbusters situation, but you guys are like exactly who you are. You're podcasters, and yet you're like, wait, I think we should start looking for these, these things out there. And you start going on these like weird adventures that they totally take left turns, and they're really funny.
That would be cool.
So like you guys should be going and looking for Bigfoot and then finding something completely different. Like you find the Fae instead. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. That would be cool.
I tell you bring something up right there. I mean, with
trademark that real quick. Just say trademark.
Listen, intellectual property right here.
Right. We got it documented
on StreamYard. Oh yeah. It's already our intellectual property. So.
But the Fae, I mean, there are, when we did that show about the Fae and all of the things that encompasses, I mean, you could just pick one and just say, we're going with this. We're gonna do this strictly on this particular part of the Fae realm, and just go nuts. Wendigos and skinwalkers have always been, the stories. I love the Native American legends about those. And, I've seen a couple movies about skinwalkers. None of them are really all that great. I think there's a handful of Wendigo movies that have been out before.
Yeah.
There's one that came out in 2000. I actually saw it at the Angelica Film Center. I saw it at. It's okay. It's pretty good. It's a decent, it's a decent ride, but I think that there's another Wendigo movie that we should get, I feel like crypto's. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Matt. Go ahead, finish.
Oh no. No, I'm leading you, so you take off.
I feel like what you were saying about the native culture, and especially the skinwalker, is I lived with 2 native gentlemen. They were my roommates right before I decided to live by myself and make enough money to live by myself. And I remember saying, "Are you guys comfortable talking about it?" And they said no.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't speak of it because it will follow you. And so it's interesting how their legends and their stories, their culture is so rooted in nature and not disturbing it, and saying like, we respect it, we don't talk about it, and we don't want to talk about it.
Yep.
That means there's something there.
That
means that there's something there. When there's that type of respect and sort of fear of bringing something to you, that's why I never dismiss people.
Yep.
When it comes to their experiences. Because I'm like, wait, you're really shook up about this. Like you really did, you saw something, right? Like you definitely saw something. So yeah, I would love to see something be done of quality that lets us know more about the Wendigo and the Skinwalker without it being sort of, maybe it's not so much scary, but it's something that teaches us more about why the legend is so important to the culture.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can make that really creepy too.
Because you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just a scary story. I mean, it's ingrained in their culture. But those are the absolute best legends. Are the ones that are so deeply rooted. Those are the ones that will actually terrify you. I mean, we can talk about it. We didn't grow up with that being a part of who we were. But, when you touch on something with someone of a different culture and they immediately say, no, we don't discuss that. Then you understand that, to me, that right there, that's terrifying enough.
There is a real fear there. Yeah. There is a true fear of this thing, and bringing that, it's like, you don't want to bring that into your house.
Right.
It's like when someone says, don't bring this object into your house. You have to respect it. Yep. And that's where the people in the horror movies make the mistake. It's always like the people that have the hubris that go, I'm going to do it anyway. And then they're dead, Right. Yep. So you have, there's a certain amount of respect that comes with these tales, these tall tales. You have to approach them with respect and with some fear in you,
Right.
Some fear of these things, because it goes into what I love about you guys. What you've touched upon, especially with the Fae, is how things are connected, right? So I've been obsessed lately about Bigfoot being an interdimensional being. Yeah. Right. It's some sort of time slip, and they're slipping in and out. Right. I love that idea. I think that's so cool, because I love you guys also did an episode recently where there was not recently, but this I went far back, and when I found out about you guys, I went all the way back. I listened from episode 1 until now. There was one about different dimensions and time slips and that kind of thing. And then doppelgangers. I think doppelgangers fall in there too. You guys just did the doppelganger episode. Who's to say that these things aren't slipping in and out of different dimensions? Skinwalkers, Bigfoots, Big Feets, Wendigos. Who's to say that they're not just sort of in some sort of time slip,
exactly,
going in and out, and then you have these places like the Pine Barrens and places in California where a lot of these Bigfoot are seen. What if, I wouldn't put it past the physical state of things that could actually exist.
Yep. And that's where I have landed with a lot of this stuff is I don't think they live in our dimension all the time. I think they visit. And Matt and I talked about that with several different cryptids, and even with the flying rods, the skyfish.
That was a great one.
Which we got a lot of people, that's one of those topics that people went, nope, it's definitely a shutter speed issue. There's nothing else. And I'm like, well, for some of that, maybe, but look at that classic shot of the skydivers, and then you've got the rods coming in. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but you're not going to have two different shutter speeds in the same frame. Yep. So it can't do that. That to me proves that there's something there. So is it that they're flying in and out of our time and space, or are we only seeing part of what they are as they travel through? Maybe it's 16 feet and all we're catching is a leg as it flops through partial in our time and space. And I think that Bigfoot, there's a lot of people that get mad when you say they'll get mad when you say they're fully corporeal or they're not. You can't, there's two separate camps for Bigfoot, and they don't really come together. And I don't think that they're fully one or the other. I think they are a living, breathing creature, but exploiting holes in our universe, and they're able to come and go as they please. And yeah, they hunt, and they're a living, breathing creature, but that's the reason why people can be tracking them and then they disappear. With the Patterson Gimlin film, and speaking of Astonishing Legends, we were talking to Forrest, and he was talking about they were tracking Patty after that, after the frames on the video that you see, then Bob Gimlin went to track, and he was a tracker. And he tracked her to a river. You see a wet footprint hit a rock, and then nothing else. She completely disappeared. So why would that be if they're living, breathing creature, and they wouldn't have the footprints to track if they were ghostly things? So I think she got to that point. She knew that's where her hole to get back home was. And just like we have rats and mammals and stuff that can slide through holes in walls that we can't see, they're so small we don't think anything can get in there. I think big fetuses can do the same thing. They exploit the holes. And I think if we were to have, like, I don't want to see a documentary of somebody going out and hunting Bigfoot, because we have that too often. But I think if we were to do a Bigfoot movie, I think there's so much potential in it being a multi-dimensional being that you could create a movie with that and have mostly suspense. You wouldn't have to have somebody dressed up in a Bigfoot costume the whole movie. You could have most of it suspense, and that in horror movies is always pretty scary to me, where you don't actually see the monster. Mm-hmm. You just hear it, like off to the side, you hear as it comes through behind you, you know, and that freaks you out. And I think you could exploit that for Bigfoot and use the dimensional slips and everything and create a really cool movie that way.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that what's really cool to explore with a crypto movie would be the high strangeness that surrounds it.
Yes.
You know, so exploring Bigfoot as an interdimensional being, right? And time slips and or dimensional slips, not time slips, but dimensional slips, and almost treating them like, you know, they know how, that's their subway. They know how to get from this. They know how to get on this train at this time. They will appear here, and then they know how to get out. You know, and I think that the hubris of humanity is always, well, that's impossible. But how do you know?
Yep,
because there's so many things we don't know. You know, which I mean, this is all leading to, like, one of the main event things is that, like, my theory of everything that we're seeing, not in the skies, but these super fast things that we're seeing that, you know, the Pentagon's getting on camera, they're coming from the water, guys. Like, that stuff is coming from down there. We don't know what's down there. And they're coming up and they're zooming away and they're collecting whatever they want, and then they're going back down.
Yep. There's a lot of USO sightings where people see stuff going in and out of the water all the time. And, you know, that goes back to that. I'm bad with names, so I'll think of his name in a minute, but writer-researcher from decades ago, he said, what we see in the sky has always been here. The alien spaceships have always been on Earth, and they're watching over the Earth, and our ancestors saw them, and they called them, you know, gods or whatever. And then modern day, we see them and we think they're coming from outer space, but they live amongst us, and they're basically caretakers of the Earth, watchers of the world. He called them WOW. And I think that makes a lot more sense to me than something coming from hundreds of thousands of light years away to our planet. They're always here. They're just maybe a breakaway civilization that's so much more intelligent than we are. And I mean, the old stuff fascinates me, and I haven't seen many movies that do it, that exploit this, but the old gods that have always been here, like Cthulhu and stuff like that, that was supposedly an old god. Those are the things that creep me out so much because I think of, okay, they've always been here. What kind of power do they have? What can they do? Where are they? And if that's legit, then maybe a lot of this that our ancestors left for us in, there's a monster here is maybe an old god that was just seen more then.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but old gods that have been on the earth forever and you can awaken them and stuff, that gets my hackles up. It
yep.
creeps me out. And I'm like, okay, what if they are real? What if they are behind the scenes of everything that's going on in the world and they are, they're putting their little hand over here and changing that a little bit and they're causing this fight and they're, this war and it's them orchestrating everything. I mean, it's creepy. And I think it's something that could potentially be true.
Oh, absolutely. And how I think how it also connects all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The more we're getting, disclosures and things like that, in a way, I love the UFO community, especially like Somewhere in the Skies. It's a great podcast.
Yep.
They're all about research. They're not saying we're here to prove that there's aliens. We just want to know what these things are.
Yeah. Yep.
And how they're connected. And it's such a logical way to think of this is like, well, how is this well, okay, but where are they coming from? But with all this stuff like disclosure and things, we're starting to see that even the government's like, we don't even know what the hell they are, guys.
Exactly.
Like, we don't know. That whole disclosure thing that came out, they basically were like, we don't know either.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Which I think
we thought we were going to get this big thing. And it's like, they're in the, there's more. I think that the UFO researchers know more than the government does because they're digging and digging.
They took it seriously for way
They
longer than the government did.
They took it seriously.
Yeah.
And when you look at the disclosure stuff that came out, and everybody, all these UFO enthusiasts seem so disappointed at what the government said. Personally, I loved it because they're admitting we don't know. We're confident that it's not another country. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond that, whatever it is uses technology that we don't have yet. We don't have craft that can move like this, and certainly not a craft that can fly and go into water at these speeds. Personally, I think that's great because what I did not want to hear is it's weather balloons, it's some kind of a
swamp gas.
It's an owl.
Yeah, it's not an owl.
I need you guys to make a shirt that says it's not an owl and just just like the Mothman. Like it's not. When you guys say it's not an owl, like look. Same thing with sky rods, right? Like those things could be coming from the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We don't know. We have to start admitting that there's stuff that we don't understand. And we may never understand what it is, but let's at least admit it's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's at least admit that it's there.
Well,
there's enough people that are seeing these things.
Yeah.
And then you've got the government trying to cover it up so hard. They're like, no, you didn't see anything.
Yep.
Like, no, I know what I saw.
Right.
I know what I saw.
Yep. I think what has kept us back from finding out more than we do about these things like Bigfoot and aliens and skyfish and stuff like that is, like Matt and I have talked about before, no scientist in that community is willing to take it seriously. And you've got the one or two people that are looking into Bigfoot that take it seriously, like Jeffrey Meldrum. He's a PhD and he studies primate morphology and the footprints in these casts of Bigfoot. And he said, these are legit casts. He said, yes, there are some fakes, But these that I'm looking at, they've got dermal ridges. You can see the ball of their foot. You can see their arch. You can see where they're not cookie cutter things being put into the mud, because some of them have a gimpy toe, or they're missing a toe or something. So why are people going to go to those lengths to put dermal ridges and a broken toe into this track? They're not. So these things are legit. But if you say that to most of the scientific community, they laugh you off, and they say you're not serious. You're going to lose your tenure with schools and stuff like that if you do it. So I think that has held us back from understanding things. And like you said, the UFO researchers, they know more than the government does, because they've been taking it seriously and not just saying, oh, that's kooky and you guys are nuts, and brushing it off for so many years. And I think if we took it more seriously and actually looked into it, we would learn a lot more about the planet and a lot more about the weirdness of Earth. It's not as straightforward as you think it is. And that ties right into these horror movies and creature features and stuff like that, because that could be out there. We don't know. Yes. In the depths of the Mariana Trench, there could be a Cthulhu type creature down there. And we don't know, because we can't get down there to see it. We've sent a couple things down there, but you can't stay down there for long periods of time and explore the whole thing. So there could be a Cthulhu type creature down there that used to attack ships, that maybe still does attack ships, and we just don't hear about it.
The Kraken, all of these things.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I mean, going back, just jumping back a few minutes to the UFO thing, what's really sad is pilots are like, oh yeah, we see stuff all the time, but we don't want to say anything because everyone will call us crackpots.
Yeah, they don't.
Yep.
And I'm like, do you see it? They're seeing it. Why are we telling people why do we tell people you're not allowed to say what you saw?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why are we so judgmental in that way? Like, why are we like, you're a crackpot?
Yep.
When the person is like, no, I really did. And look, there are people who do make stuff up.
Sure.
You know, but Adam, look, you asked me if I had an experience, and I have been so scared to tell anyone what happened to me when I was a kid, because I was like, everyone's going to think I'm nuts, you know, but I know what I saw. Like, I saw something. Permission to tell that story, if
Absolutely.
I may. I know this, and I have. This is the first time I've ever talked about it publicly. So, and I feel safe telling you guys, because this is why I believe everyone when they say they've seen something. But I have theories about my own experience. So it was Christmas Eve, and we would spend it on Long Island with my grandparents on Long Island. We'd stay like real late, and then we'd come home like 3 or 4 in the morning. We'd come home. And so we were emptying the trunk, and my sister went upstairs. I think she just went straight to bed, and I stayed behind to help my parents, you know, move stuff inside. My mom and my dad went inside, and I heard, and but I will tell you my theories. I heard sleigh bells. I swear. I was like, what? And it was like the Doppler effect. So they were far away, and I'm like, okay, it must be someone outside, like doing something, whatever. And then, as clear as day, I hear them getting closer, and then through the sky, I see a trail of lights, and then right in the front, there's a red dot, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. And I'm a kid, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I'm seeing him, he's here, this is it, this is happening. And this thing goes across the sky, and then it disappeared. And I was like, okay. And I told my parents, I was like, I think I saw him. And my mom was like, you've got some imagination, kid. It was like, Patterson Gimlin, Gimlin,
Yep.
or was it Patterson? He was like, this couldn't have happened to the worst person. Like, no one's going to believe me because I didn't fib when I was a kid. I wasn't a liar, but I had an overactive imagination.
Right.
Do I think I saw a flying man with a red suit? No, but I saw something. And I don't know if my child brain said, I'm going to help you deal with this. So I'm going to let you see this instead of what you think you saw. However, that night I saw something and I don't know what it was. And I know that sounds insane, but like I saw something. I saw lights in the sky and I heard something.
Yep.
That was my only experience. I've never had a paranormal experience. I've never had anything, but I told Adam, my theory is that I saw a craft or something, and my childhood brain said, here's how we're going to deal with this.
Yep. And I think
so
that could be it. Or like I had brought up to you, there is the theory of screen memories where abductees or experiencers will be driving down the road and they'll get abducted or they'll see a craft. But later, when they recall it, it's not a craft. It's a burning car flipped upside down.
Right.
It's something that was implanted in their brain to make it seem mundane, or I think one of them, I can't remember if it's Whitley Strieber or somebody who had the giant white owl that always showed up, and it turned out through hypnotic regression that it was not an owl, it was little green aliens, the gray aliens. So it could be that, you saw a craft, but maybe you had more of an experience than what you remember, and that was implanted into your subconscious as it was Christmas. You're a kid. We're going to make you think it was Santa and the sleigh, so that people will obviously not believe you when you say you saw Santa, but it will cover our tracks and all that. And I've been told by people, because alien movies freak me out, like I just don't watch many movies with aliens because it gives me the heebie-jeebies. And I've had a couple people say, well, could that be because you have had an experience? You've been abducted, and that in the back of your mind creeps you out. And I'm like, well, maybe, but I don't frickin' want to think about that because that creeps me out even more.
But
so I will say this: from that moment on, I fully went in on UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
From that moment on, when I was a kid, I fully went in on, well, I saw something, you know, and I've held that story back. I told my girlfriend the other day, and she was like, do you know what you do? I mean, I could see this memory like clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was not, I did not imagine this. You know what I mean? Like, I know this was not my imagination. I know this was not me being overtired.
Yeah. I
was lucid. I was up. It was cold. I was like snapped out of being like, in the back seat of the car. Like, I know I saw something.
Yeah.
And it freaks me out to this day. Like, if there's that, if our souls, whatever happens to us after we die, if there's someone that says, what's the one thing you really want to know? Like, that you couldn't, I'd be like, what did I see?
Yeah.
What did I see that night? Like, just tell me what I saw, what was it? If this was a prank, or if this was like some sort of thing that someone did, I will say it is the most amazing special effect I have ever seen, because I clearly, it like hovered over the houses. What was weird is, though, it was one straight line. It didn't move. It wasn't like going up and down. I couldn't see. I just saw lights go like this.
Yep.
And it was like in that speed too. I mean, no one can see this who's just listening, but it was just a steady speed with no movement. And I was like, what the hell? And like, I just followed it, and it just disappeared, behind the houses at some point.
Yep.
Crazy. So,
it probably was a craft that you saw, and it's either, like you said, that's just how your kid brain dealt with it due to the timing and you weren't at that time thinking, oh, hey, UFOs. You were thinking,
right,
this is Christmas, it's Santa, but there was something there. And, you saying that's why you don't judge people and you don't say, no, you didn't see that. That's exactly how I feel about the sleep paralysis that I've had. People.
So okay.
Yeah, people will.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That's frightening. Yeah.
People will say, no, sleep paralysis, it's all a dream and you're really not awake. You just think you are. Nope. I've had it happen many a time. And you can ask Matt. I've told him about it afterward and he knew I was not lying. And when I told him about it, it happens. And maybe there are some that dreams like that where people think that, but that's not what mine was. And I don't think that's what all of them are, because I've had it and I've had an entity in the room when I had sleep paralysis. So I know it happens. And so I don't tell anybody that, no, you didn't see that. You didn't experience that, because I've been told that before too. And I know for a fact I experienced it. So who are we to judge anyone on what they saw or didn't see?
Yes. And how brilliant is it to have a kid see something and then him go, I think I saw Santa. Of course you're going to be like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
No, you made that up. So how brilliant, whatever I did see, my brain went to that, and it's like, I couldn't make up anything. You know what I mean? Like, I could literally make up. Why would I make up that? Like, what? I would never want to stand in a room and be like, yeah, no, I think I saw Santa. Like, I've never done it in my life. I've never done it in my life, because I'm like, I never want to tell anyone that. You know what I mean? It's because I'm like, everyone's going to think I'm crazy. But it's as I got more and more into I got more and more into listening to experiencers and whatever they were going through, I was like, well, it's possible that I just camouflaged it in my head. And sleep paralysis, I think, is something that's so unique and it's so scary. And damn anyone who says, oh, you don't have that, it's just, who are they to say? They're not the ones that have gone through it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yep. So I think it's important for us to listen to people who have had experiences. And I think, look, if you're a good judge of character, you can tell who's telling the truth and who's not. I can pretty much be like, all right, well, I think that you might be, you might be, it might be something else. But there are those other people who they just talk about it and they're like, no, this really happened. And there's a look in their eye.
Yep.
And you just know.
Yep.
You just know they're telling the truth. So.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Heading back to the movie things, and then we got into the UFO stuff. Those are the scary movies that I used to always gravitate to. And some of my favorite, maybe they're not considered horror. I think a couple of them are, is that science fiction horror. Event Horizon is one of my favorites. And it's just,
that's so good.
It's a psychological thing. And it really pulls you in. I mean, you see what these characters, these nightmares that they have, these horrible fears that are just brought to life in front of them. It's terrifying. And then the isolation of space is also quite terrifying. The original Alien, I mean, it's terrifying. When you really break it down, but it's so well done that you watch it, and I remember rewatching it as an adult, going, this is such a good movie. I mean, beyond the subject matter, beyond the special effects, it's just such a good movie. It's so well written, and just you get that feeling of, hey, we're out here in literally the middle of nowhere. And this is going on. And one other, what more current was Pitch Black. Do you remember that?
Pitch Black's great.
I mean, it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, to add to that too, Sunshine, Danny Boyle, Sunshine is fantastic. A lot of people thought it was a science fiction, but it 100% is a science fiction horror movie.
Mhm.
It's really great. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen that one.
Me either.
It's so good. Sunshine is fantastic. It's really, really good. Just going back to Alien for a second, they did a novelization of the William Gibson's Alien 3 script, the original, the one that was supposed to get made, and then they made the one where like Newt and Bishop and Hicks die, and she's on that weird planet with all those prisoners. So there's this movie that William Gibson, who wrote Neuromancer and all those great sci-fi books, he's a master. He wrote Alien 3, and they made a novelization of it. I'm reading it right now, guys. It's amazing. I'm like, oh, why didn't this movie exist? It's like Newt's in it, Hicks is in it, Ripley's like in a coma the whole time. It's amazing. It's such a great read. So I highly recommend that. Alien is probably one of the best horror movies that exists. It's a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's the scariest. It's so scary because it's so claustrophobic. And here's the thing. You love every single one of those characters. You're on their side. You want them to win, and they're losing at every turn.
Yeah.
Every one of them is just
nothing they can do.
Pummeled. There's nothing they can do. And when you love the characters, I mean, I think that this is why I think horror is important, and why I love horror is that you feel sympathy for people. When you feel sympathy for people, or you can sympathize with either the villain or the people who are running from the villain, you have a successful film, That's why we love all of the Final Girls, That's why we're rooting for them. We're rooting for the Laurie Strode. Some are rooting for the Michael Myers, but there are those two characters, those two quintessential characters that really the central figures you're rooting for. And I think that was the magic of Alien too, is that every person on that ship I loved. And when they all died, I was like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
They're all dead.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's the cool thing about that movie is it doesn't end the way you would think a movie, like you think in the end, the hero's going to win and, maybe a few of them will die, but not everybody die, which then makes you think, is the xenomorph, the alien, is that the hero of the movie?
Right.
Since all the rest of them, if you're looking at it in a different way, did we think the hero was the bad guy this whole time? Maybe we had the hero and villain switched. And that's one reason why I liked that movie, is because that's what I thought at the very end of it. I was like, so why did all these people die if they were the hero? Maybe they're not the hero. Maybe they're
the outsiders.
Yep, they're the antagonist, and the alien's the protagonist. So
one thing about that movie, though, that it's absolutely, it gives me the chills even now, and I know it's coming, is just that the periods of revelation where they realize before they ever see the alien, they realize something is going on. When they see all the eggs, when they're entering that room on that ship, and they see the size of what was piloting that ship. When they look at the end, and then you realize, oh, that's not a structure. That is, a being that is enormous. And, it was so cool that they used the actors' kids in spacesuits to film that scene where they're crawling in there to make them look that much smaller. This was done before they could just, CGI these little actors in there, so it just has that feel of you realize, like when the actors realize, oh dear Lord, what have they found? And that's why I love it.
One of the most, and going back to the whole like CGI thing, what's great about the older films, and the films that we grew up with, which are now considered older films, which is really funny, those films were, you couldn't have a budget where you could show the alien all the time. So much of it was based on what you didn't see. So there's a scene. Remember when the scene you see a little blip on the map, and then the other blip's getting closer and closer. Blip, 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 blip. It's right behind you, and he turns, and that's when you just see the alien like open its mouth. That was terrifying. Just a blip on two blips on a screen was terrifying because oh no, it's right behind you. It's right behind you. To be able to build that tension without CGI, without something being there, that's the horror that I love. The stuff that's unseen, you know?
What?
It just
same with me.
What is it?
It's that suspense of waiting for the jump scare that's scarier than the jump scare.
What is it? Is it hard to kill? I'm almost positive it's a Steven Seagal movie where the line is the anticipation of death is worse than death itself. And,
I think that might be, that might be hard to kill.
To be a filmmaker and to keep that in the forefront when you're making a horror movie is brilliant to me, because that's you want your audience to feel that anticipation coming. I know it's coming, and I'm trying to prepare myself, and I can't, and it's going to get me anyway.
Yep.
And especially I love the movies where it's like, don't open that closet door. Don't open it. And they open it and the cat jumps out and you're like, oh, and then bam, then they get you.
Yep. The first jump scare is nothing. And then all of a sudden, oh crap, there's the real one.
Now, if you guys want one that's real tense, it really, it shreds your nerves at every angle. It's this new film called Caveat. It's great. It's on Shudder. Our friends at Shudder.
I've heard that. I've heard that title. I have not looked into it yet, but
it's one of my favorites. One of my favorites, probably in the last 5 years. That one really stood out because it's so nerve shredding. Like, there's not a lot of fancy camera work. It's a lot of just static shots, but this creeping dread at every turn. And it is, it's amazing. I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, please do. Especially because we're in spooky season, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Best season of them all.
I'm telling you.
We're plowing through Squid Game right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I'm doing Midnight Mass. Have you guys watched that yet?
I've seen
not
it.
Yet.
We want to watch it, but I still have small kids. And
I've heard good things about it.
They like to migrate to, our television time is at night, and they will migrate in, and we just haven't been able to have the opportunity to start watching something that's really scary without them being aware that that's what's going on or hearing it. And, then it's over. Then it's a week's worth of waking up with a foot on your face and that kind of stuff.
If you just start the movie being nude, and they'll walk in and go, oh, never mind, and turn around and walk out.
My kids will be like, oh, we're doing this tonight.
Nude movies.
Great. Naked movie night. Midnight Mass is great, though. Mike Flanagan, one of my favorite horror directors. Ouija Ii. Oh, my God. Ouija Ii took a bad movie and made the sequel outstanding. Have you guys seen?
I have not.
Ouija 2?
Not 2, no.
If you dig into Mike Flanagan, I think it's Mike Flanagan. I'm pretty sure it's Mike Flanagan. If you dig into his oeuvre, he's a fun director because he's done Midnight Mass. He did Dr. Sleep. He did, Ouija 2 is my favorite. I loved it. But even his first movie that he shot with his Canon E3, whatever, it's great. He's just he's a guy that gets emotionality out of every one of his stories, as well as make it really bone-chillingly scary. But Midnight Mass, if you can sneak away from the kiddies, it's great. Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of character and depth and emotion in the storytelling. So it's it's more than just horror with good old Mikey Flanagan.
Yeah,
it's definitely on the watch list. So
yeah. I'm gonna have to do it. Pull the trigger on and actually do it. So, Dennis, I want to thank you for coming on and doing our Halloween special with us. I can't tell you how much fun we've had talking horror movies and just everything with you. It probably our favorite Halloween episode that we've done so far. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
This has been
so
great.
much. I can't thank you guys enough. This is awesome. It's an honor. It really, really is an honor. And I'll continue to stay in touch and continue to watch or listen to the show. And just look forward to every week that I have with you guys.
Yep.
whether it be on Instagram or in my ears as I'm doing my walk through my own graveyard.
There you go.
Across the street from me. I'm really honored, and it's been a real pleasure, guys.
Well, be sure to thank Miss Bethany for turning you on to the graveyard there. So
let me tell you something. She's real jealous.
Well,
she's real. She was like, I said, hey, guess what? The Graveyard Tales guys asked me to be on the show, and she went, oh, that's just great, isn't it?
what?
No, she's really happy. She actually says she told me to send you guys her love, and that she says she loves you guys, and yeah, she's a huge fan of you guys.
Well, next time we'll have to have you both on.
Yep, we can do that.
She's a good one to have on by herself. She's fun. She's a lot of fun.
We'll do a follow up to this one and either have her or have y'all both on. That'll be cool.
We would love to double. We could do a double team. We've been told we're a fun interview together. So
awesome. We'll do it.
Actually let her talk. In between me yapping away. She actually gets a word in, so.
Right on. Well, Dennis, thank you, and we'll holler at you soon.
Thank you so much, guys. This was great.
All right. We want to thank Dennis Cahlo again for joining us for our Halloween episode. We had a blast. It's such a good time talking to Dennis. He's a big fan of the show, but he's a good friend of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So we appreciate him so much for coming on and hanging out with us tonight.
Especially with the time difference and him being multiple states away and all that.
That's right.
It was a little later for him than it was for us, so we do appreciate that.
We kept him up late tonight. But please go and check out our website. It's graveyardpodcast.com. And on our website, you can listen to the show. You can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise, and you can become a patron. And we appreciate everyone who takes time to donate to the show. We try to give you some goodies that make it worth your money. And seeing the video from tonight's show will be extra fun, to see the three of us just hanging out and talking.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and our Facebook group. It's one of the best you're going to come across. I promise you that. And don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. It helps bring the show up the charts, but it allows people to find the graveyard easier.
Mm-hmm.
It just brings more people here. So thanks everybody for listening. Happy Halloween. And until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
Happy Halloween.
A witch matek?
Yeah, that's good too.
Now it's fix the dad joke.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you can't invite a director on. He'll start giving you options.
That's true. You could say this or this. Either one of those is fine.
Either one of those is fine.